Good evening. You're watching Just the News. I'm Amita Chandra. Straight up to our top story, and this is coming in from Karnataka. Three people have been arrested in connection with the Bajrang Dal member murder case in Karnataka's Shivamogga. Harsha, a 26-year-old Bajrang Dal member who worked as a tailor, was stabbed by unidentified persons around 9 p.m. last night. He was rushed to the hospital but could not survive. Now, NDTV has reported that tensions grip Shivamogga district in the state of Karnataka, and that vehicles were set on fire, and they were isolated incidents of stone pelting after this incident. Home Minister R Praggnanandhaa has said today, and I quote, "A group of 4 or 5 youth murdered him. I don't know of any organization being behind this murder. Law and order situation is under control in Shivamogga. As a precautionary measure, schools and colleges in the city limits have been closed for 2 days," end quote. Now, he also went on to say that the probe so far has not revealed any link between that murder and the hijab controversy that's going on in the state of Karnataka. Section 144 of the CRPC has also been imposed in Shivamogga. Moving on now to hijab ban controversy. Updates coming in from the Karnataka High Court. The Karnataka High Court has continued to hear petitions which have challenged the ban on hijab in educational institutions in the state. The High Court today asked the Advocate General whether hijab can be permitted in institutions or not. To this, the Advocate General said the operative part of the government order leaves it to institutions to make a decision on this regard. Now, the AG further said that the government order gives complete autonomy to institutions to decide on uniform. He also said that the preamble of the Karnataka Education Act is to foster a secular environment, and the stand of state is that element of introducing religious aspects shouldn't be there in uniform. Now, the court is going to resume hearing on this particular case tomorrow. Meanwhile, the Bengaluru police have extended the prohibitory orders in place in the city, barring gatherings near educational institutions for another 2 weeks, that is till the 8th of March. Now, the order prevents gatherings within 200 meters of schools, PU colleges, degree colleges, and other educational institutions under Section 1441 of the CRPC. Also in the news, in an interview with News 18 TV channel, Home Minister Amit Shah has said today, and I quote, "It is my personal belief that people of all religions should accept the school's dress code, and the issue is now in court, and the court is conducting its hearings on the matter. Whatever it decides should be followed by all," end quote. Now, his comments come at a time when the Karnataka High Court is hearing a bunch of petitions challenging this ban in the state. Moving on to COVID news right now, coming in from across the country. First, starting off, the news that biological ease Corbevax has received emergency use authorization in India for people in the age groups between 12 and 18. Now, the company said in a statement today that it has received approval from the Drug Controller General of India for restricted use in an emergency situation in adolescents aged 12 to less than 18 years based on interim results of the ongoing phase 2-3 clinical studies. And now, India has so far been administering Bharat Biotech's Covaxin to teens between 15 and 18 since the 3rd of January. Meanwhile, in Australia, after nearly 2 years of stringent COVID curbs, Australia has fully reopened its borders for vaccinated international travelers on Monday. Now, hundreds of people were reunited with family and friends. More than 50 international flights will reach the country throughout the day, including 27 touching down in Sydney. Now, Reuters has reported that this move will also revive the tourism and hospitality sectors that was adversely hampered because of COVID earlier. Also in the news, Queen Elizabeth II has tested positive for COVID, and this news came in on Sunday. The Buckingham Palace said that the 95-year-old Queen is experiencing mild cold-like symptoms. Now, the statement also said, and I quote, "She will continue to receive medical attention and will follow all appropriate guidelines," end quote. Moving on to other news coming in from across the country now, starting off with the sentencing of RJD chief Lalu Prasad Yadav. Now, a special CBI court in Ranchi has sentenced him to 5 years imprisonment in the 139 crore rupee fodder scam case. A 60 lakh rupee fine has also been imposed on him. He was convicted in the case on the 15th of February. He was found guilty of illegal withdrawals to the tune of 139.35 crore rupee from the Doranda treasury by the CBI court. He's already been sentenced to in 4 other fodder scam cases as well. This was the 5th and the final case. Also in the news, family members of Lakhimpur Kheri case victims have moved the Supreme Court seeking cancellation of bail granted to Union Minister of State for Home Affairs Ajay Mishra's son Ashish Mishra, who is an accused in the case. This news was reported by A9, which says that the case against Mishra pertains to the killing of 4 farmers and a journalist during a protest against the 3 farm laws that have now been repealed. A total of 8 people died in that violence that followed the protest at Uttar Pradesh's Lakhimpur Kheri district on the 3rd of October. Mishra was granted bail on the 10th of February by the Allahabad High Court. Moving on now, after massive backlash from people across social media users, journalists, etc., Twitter on Sunday removed a post that was posted by the official page of BJP for Gujarat, which featured a caricature applauding the recent court verdict sentencing 38 convicts to death in the 2008 Ahmedabad blast case. Now, PTI quoted Gujarat BJP spokesperson Magnus Carlsen as saying on Sunday, and I quote, "The post on the 2008 serial blast verdict has been removed by Twitter after someone reported against it," end quote. Now, as per Twitter, the tweet was taken down for violating the social media platform's rules. Also in the news, according to ANI, Uttar Pradesh has witnessed a voter turnout of 61.09% in the 3rd phase of its voting, and Punjab has so far witnessed 66.53%, and this is until 5 p.m. on Sunday as reported by ANI. In the meantime, the Election Commission on Sunday has taken suo motu cognizance of the violation of Model Code of Conduct by Samajwadi Party President Akhilesh Yadav in UP. Now, Akhilesh Yadav had allegedly interacted and shared his opinions with media personnel outside the polling booth. Moving on to environment news right now, climate scientists have gathered today to finalize the latest section of the 6th report from the IPCC, or the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. And this is interesting because according to Hindustan Times, the report is expected to also inform on the mental health impact of climate crisis. Now, the report, which will have a summary for policymakers that the conference will review line by line, will also cover economic, food security, biosphere, health, and mental health impacts of the climate crisis. Now, that is going to be out on the 28th of February. On to international news right now. India on Sunday asked the family members of embassy officials in Ukraine, including students and citizens whose stay is not vital, to leave Ukraine amid rising tensions with Russia. Now, the Indian embassy in Kyiv has said, and I quote, "In view of the continued high levels of tensions and uncertainties with respect to the situation in Ukraine, all Indian nationals whose stay is not deemed essential and all Indian students are advised to leave Ukraine temporarily," end quote. Meanwhile, Joe Biden has agreed in principle to hold a summit with Vladimir Putin to discuss the crisis in Ukraine, but on a condition. Now, the condition is that the White House has said the talks proposed by France will only take place if Russia does not invade Ukraine. Now, the proposal was announced by the French presidency after 2 phone calls between President Emmanuel Macron and Mr. Putin, which went on, according to reports, for almost 3 hours in total. Meanwhile, a spokesperson for UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson has told a media briefing that intelligence reports suggest Russian president intends to launch an invasion of Ukraine. The spokesperson told reporters, and I quote, "The intelligence we're seeing suggests that Russia intends to launch an invasion and that President Putin's plan has already begun," end quote. Meanwhile, Russian news agencies today reported that Russia's military has said that 5 people had been killed who allegedly crossed the border to stage an attack, which Ukraine's Ministry of Foreign Affairs says is fake news. According to Reuters, Ukrainian military officials say that the forces were not present in Russia's Rostov region. On to sports news right now. Following their 3-0 series victory against West Indies, India has become the world #1 T20I team after 6 years. Now, as per the latest update, India are on top of the rankings with 10,484 points and 269 rating points. England is second. And one piece of good news, also sports news, before we wrap up here on this bulletin. 16-year-old R Praggnanandhaa has defeated world #1 Magnus Carlsen in an online rapid chess tournament, which is called Things Masters. Now, he won in a Tarrasch variation game with black pieces in 39 moves to put an end to 31-year-old Carlsen's 3 straight wins. Now, Praggnanandhaa is now in joint 12th spot after 8 rounds with 8 points. That brings us to the end of this bulletin. Thank you so much for watching. Good night.